I want to ask you a favor. But first, I made something stupid and pointless that I want to show you. I hate the heat. A lot. I mean, look at me. Does anyone really think that someone with this complexion was built for anything other than rain, snow, and never seeing the sun? And after over 27 years of living in California, I'd finally had enough bright, sunny weather to last a lifetime. So 3 years ago, I moved 700 miles north to Portland, Oregon, a city famous for its beautifully rainy and cloudy weather. So I would like to know why the past 3 months have been so hot. This July, Portland had one of its hottest days in recorded history, and August would probably be even hotter. I'm not happy about this. I moved here to escape this nonsense, but it seems there's no escaping the summer. So I decided to fix it. I decided to make an umbrella that rains. The idea seemed easy enough. Figure out some sort of sprinkler head invention to spray water under the umbrella. My first idea was extremely simple. Use one of those garden hose attachments to spray water up into the umbrella and let it drip back down. Obviously, the build wasn't exactly difficult. All I really did was zip tie the sprayer onto the handle of the umbrella. But you know what? There's an elegance in a simple design. A sort of quiet genius. And that made it all the more shocking when it didn't work. I'd expected that the water would spray up, hit the umbrella, and then drip back down fairly evenly. It did not do this. Instead, the force of the water was so strong that it pushed almost all of the water out to the edges. The only reason I got wet at all was because I accidentally sprayed myself directly in the face while trying to look all casual with it. Mark 1 was a failure. It wasn't even worth the zip ties I used to make it. I needed to figure out a way to make the water rain evenly. So I figured, why not just make the world's worst hose? Using the cheapest hose money can buy, I took my drill and absolutely perforated it. Then I closed off the end of the hose with zip ties. There's probably a better way to do this, but I didn't bother to look it up. Finally, I did my best to attach the hose to the umbrella with yet more zip ties. If you haven't guessed, I love these things. Not only are they super useful, but their inventor, Marcus C. Logan, designed them so that assembly workers at Boeing didn't need to destroy their hands using the old wax cable ties. I love inventions like this. Things that are designed to improve the lives of hardworking people. And maybe my invention could help people like that someday. Anyways, I managed to get the hose rigged up to the umbrella and put it to the test. Mark II was a massive improvement on the design. The only problem was that it rained a little too hard. It was the kind of rain that blinds you, except it was self-inflicted. It was too much. I needed a better design. Something that would slowly and evenly drip water without creating a monsoon. And that's when I had my stroke of genius. I didn't need to invent something new. I just needed to misuse existing technology. Those hoses for watering plants, the ones that are designed to evenly leak, they were perfect. No holes to drill, no hard-to-find materials to source. As a wise man probably once said, if you can't buy it at Harbor Freight, it ain't worth buying. Even better, rigging it up was super easy. And it worked perfectly. Light, even drops like a spring shower. Mark III was my proof of concept. All that was left was to make it mobile. Now, this presented me with a problem. You see, I have a secret. At this point, I know I must seem like an expert in aquatic engineering, but the truth is, I didn't know what I was doing. I've been hooking this thing up to a hose because it meant I didn't have to mess with a pump or electronics. Unfortunately, it meant that I couldn't go far. It was tethered in place by the lifeline of its hose. I needed to be mobile, which means I need to figure out a pump of some kind. I scoured the internet for anything that would work. It needed to be battery powered, otherwise I'd be swapping my hose tether for an extension cord. It also needed to provide enough pressure to power the device. Most of what I found seemed to be for fish tanks or growing weed. None of those pumps moved enough water for this to work. Finally, I realized that the ones meant for ponds were closer to the size I needed. And on the bottom of an Amazon search, I found it. Some company I'd never heard of had exactly what I needed. A strange pump that used a DeWalt battery as a power source, the same kind of battery I use for my drill. I think it was meant for draining ponds or moving water in an RV or something. It seemed to be an invention searching for a purpose, and I could give it that. It had almost no reviews at the time, which always worries me, but it claimed to be able to move 400 gallons per hour up to almost 10 feet up. If it worked like it claimed, it would be perfect. When it finally arrived, I wanted to see what it could do. I attached the battery from my drill, got a bowl of water, and flipped the switch. And nothing happened. Well, mostly nothing. I could hear the pump turn on, but no water was moving. Worried that I had been scammed, I tried it again, this time putting the end of the pump further in the water, and I am an idiot. I don't know what I expected to happen here. Obviously, it works. After wiping down my workbench, I began to attempt to attach the pump to the umbrella. It's got a spot for attaching things, but for some reason it's larger than a normal garden hose. So I used some surgical tubing. The last time I used this stuff, I was a teenager building a shovel crossbow in the backyard and ended up breaking part of the fence. My parents never found out, but they watch all my videos, so sorry, Mom and Dad. By the way, I don't know why this is called surgical tubing when it's really just meant for slingshots. I mean, I know it's used for medical and science things, but we all know its true purpose is arming 10-year-olds. And it was definitely not designed for what I used it for here. After struggling to get it fitted onto the pump and hose threading, I wanted to see how it worked when it wasn't drenching my workbench. And I was genuinely surprised by this little pump, especially considering it's now been removed from Amazon. Honestly, I kind of wish it had a speed control because it sucked up all the water shockingly fast. It'll rain, just not very long. That being said, it worked. So next I needed to make a reservoir of some kind to store the water in. And I decided to use a container that we're all familiar with. The gallon jug that every home in America has. Kraft mayonnaise. I saved this week's jug knowing it would be perfect. The lid was big enough to cut a hole in for the pump to pass through. It even had a handle, making it easy to attach to the umbrella with zip ties. Honestly, is there anything that mayonnaise can't improve? That question is rhetorical. Mayo is perfect, and I will die on that hill. Probably from a heart attack. The last step was to move the battery and control switch to the top. These drill batteries are weirdly expensive, and I didn't want them getting rained on. So I cut a hole in the umbrella, ensuring that it became even less useful for stopping rain than I had already made it. Some final cleanup, shortening hoses, taping up holes, and it was done. Finally, all that was left to do was to test my invention. It never occurred to me how much the upper part would get in the way while I filled up the tank. I think I ended up actually bending part of the umbrella by accident. Turning it on was also a bit awkward since the switch is on the top. After seeing how fast the pump worked during testing, I was afraid that it would empty half of the reservoir before I could even get under it. But that didn't happen. Actually, nothing happened. I could hear the pump working, but there was no rain. As fast as it was, it seemed like the pump wasn't producing enough pressure to force the water out of the hose. I prayed that it would just take a little longer for the necessary pressure to build up. Maybe it was just a tangle in the hose, or some part was pinching it at a vital point. Maybe I just needed to dance for rain. And then I felt it. Rain doesn't come all at once. It starts with a drop or two, but slowly, little by little, it grows into a shower. And that's what happened. It took a couple minutes to get going, but once it did, it produced a pleasant, relaxing rain. Even better, the slower pace meant that it wasn't draining the tank too quickly. At this rate, it would take at least 10 minutes before needing a refill. Now that I had my prototype, I began building my umbrella empire. And I had the perfect name for my company. Umbrella Corp. I even found a cool logo for it. Did you know that punishment for IP theft includes a maximum fine of up to $150,000 and possible jail time? So I didn't do that. Instead, I looked at patenting my wonderful invention. And this presented two problems. First, it cost like 10 grand to patent something. Second, I can't patent this because I just found out that it's already a product on Amazon. This entire endeavor was stupid and pointless, and to be fair, it already was from the start. I mean, the week in August I filmed this, the week I thought was going to be really hot, it rained. That's why I shot all of the tests inside. All this just to make the world's most complicated watering can. When we started, I said I had a favor to ask. I want you to come up with a stupid and pointless invention, and I want you to make it a reality. Making something useful like zip ties or mayonnaise is great. The world will always need more inventions like that. Things that help people or make life easier. But there's something wonderful about making something useless and pointless. It can't be tainted by money or fame or pride. There's no pressure for it to be perfect. There's no real deadlines. It is making something, simply for the sake of making it. And I think that's something that we too often forget to do. So go out and make something stupid and pointless. If you enjoyed this video and want to support more like it, please consider subscribing. It really helps a lot.